from the time I was really, really young, I was always really fascinated by sort of the stuff of life that we can't quite put our finger on. It's like, what is this stuff? Like, I called it ness when I was a little kid. I didn't have a word for it. It was like, what is this? Like, we're all in it. We're all connected. The natural world is like communicating with me. I'm communicating with it.
This show is brought to you by Mountain Rose Herbs. Mountain Rose Herbs is committed to putting people, plants, and planet before profit in everything they do. They work hand in hand with farm partners to provide the highest quality organic herbs, spices, extracts, teas, essential oils, and DIY fare. So please visit mountainroseherbs.com for all your herbal product needs. Okay, here we go with Herbal Radio.
Rachelle Robinett is an herbalist, educator, lifelong naturalist, and writer. Her new book, Naturally, The Herbalist's Guide to Health and Transformation, is out now.
Everybody was very, very excited that you were going to be on. So,
yeah, that's so sweet to hear. Yeah, I'm such a longtime fan.
Oh, good. Yeah, though everybody was like, "Wow, she's going to be on, and this is going to be." They were very, very excited. So, I was like,
that's sweet.
This is great. So, thank you, and welcome.
Thank you. Yeah,
welcome to this crazy podcast.
Is it crazy?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes it's like, well, not crazy in the sense that we go like crazy off, topics or anything. But I mean, for the most, it could be really fun and yes, it can definitely kind of go in so many different directions. So it gets a little crazy. But
all right, I love it. I like crazy.
I think we're gonna be okay. I think we're gonna make it out the other side. I'm pretty sure.
Okay. All right. That would be helpful for the rest of my day. But if not,
so where are you at right now? Where?
I'm in Brooklyn right now. I go back and forth between Brooklyn and Costa Rica, but also with the book launch, I've been
that sounds hard
all over. Yeah, I know, right? Actually, the transition is hard, but the rest of it is not.
Yeah. That sounds quite lovely. I mean, you get the best of absolute both worlds with that, right?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
So you're writing a lot, or have been writing a lot, right?
Both. Yeah, both. Obviously,
are you already working on book 2?
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, I was in it yesterday. I was so in it that I just like disregarded all the other work I had to do. It's like, this is just so much more important. This is my place. This is my purpose. Like, I'm in it. Nothing else matters. It was awesome.
Well, I imagine like any other creative endeavor, like once you get into that zone and it's hitting on all cylinders, you can't interrupt that.
You shouldn't. Right? Yeah, you really shouldn't. Yeah, for sure. So best feeling.
Let's begin at the beginning.
Sure.
Because that's always where you have to begin. Where did you come from? Where did you come from?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. I was born in Washington State and grew up on a farm in a tiny town in the Rainier Valley, like outside of Seattle.
Okay.
And
which town?
What's that?
Which town?
Ording.
Oh, I don't know that.
Not a lot of people do. I mean,
I know a lot of towns in Pacific Northwest, but no, I don't know that one.
Ording was tiny. It's a little less tiny now, but growing up, like no stoplight, one intersection, farms.
Yeah.
And my dad was an anesthesiologist and ran a surgery center in a nearby town. And my mom was a functional health practitioner, which she still works as today. So, that combination of growing up in nature felt like the middle of nowhere. It wasn't exactly the middle of nowhere, but we were far from, nearest neighbors, that kind of thing, nearest city. And working with animals, growing food, and then having the exposure to my dad's work, which was very Western, obviously, surgery, pharmaceuticals, these kinds of things. Sure. But he was a cowboy, he came from Wyoming and ranchers. So there was a lot of earth in him and a lot of exposure to, natural ideas. So he had kind of a combination of the two. Would take us to work. We would see like surgery being done, and just gave a really
Wait,
interesting.
what?
Yeah,
Bring a kid to work day was literally
exactly. I
surgery?
know. Yeah, he'd put us
Like
in scrubs
like,
and
hold this back. You're like
kind of intense.
sponge.
He was an intense guy. Yeah, exactly. He was an
Yeah.
intense guy, but he wanted us to see, surgery and see bodies and see, the
Yeah,
kind of work that
yeah,
he did. And that was obviously very informative. And then at mom's house, we had all of these supplements and herbal teas and healthy food. She worked primarily as a nutritionist back then. And I just had a lot of exposure to all of that stuff when I was young.
yeah,
But I never intended to make it my career. I thought it was
sure.
all interesting, but it was just a part of my life. It wasn't
Mhm.
what I wanted to do with my life. Uh,
Wait, what did you wanna do? Like, what was your thing when you were a kid?
my thing, which persisted for quite a long time, I did it actually, is I wanted to move to New York City and work in fashion.
Oh,
I wanted to
well,
get
that's fun.
I wanted to get off of that farm,
Yeah, yeah,
as far away from all
right.
that,
Yeah,
well, not all that, I should say, because personally, I practiced it forever, and I studied it on my own
yeah,
from the time I was really young, and I can explain more about that in a minute, but yeah, I was like, "I'm going to New York, I'm gonna wear suits, and I'm going to write for Vogue, and, like, this is gonna be my life,"
yeah,
and I did that. I didn't end up writing for Vogue because of other things, but I ended up working in fashion and
mhm,
um, kind of lived that dream.
yeah,
Um, but you know, in parallel to that, from the time I was really, really young, I was always really fascinated by sort of the stuff of life that we can't quite put our finger on.
mhm, mhm,
It's like what is this stuff? Like I called it ness when I was a little kid. I didn't have a word for it. It was like, what is this? Like we're all in it, we're all connected. The natural world is like communicating with me, I'm communicating with it. Like things that I eat or drink have these effects on my body.
yeah,
Everything we take in through our senses, modifies our perception of reality, modifies our experience, our state. And I was like, well, I don't know what it is, but certainly somebody in the world does. And all I have
yeah.
to do is like read enough or study enough and I'll encounter that information. um
Wait, and what was the word that you
ness, sort of this
Ness.
ness, the suffix like
Yeah, yeah.
consciousness or
Right, 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 right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna call it this. So like I was in like grade school when I was writing about
You're a smart little kid, weren't you?
my dad was like, "Oh, honey, tell him what you're working on." And I was like, I'm going to discover something absolute truth." He's like, "Isn't that cute, everyone?" I was like determined, you
Yeah,
know. I write
yeah.
about this a little bit in my book too because it drove me into ultimately herbalism.
Mhm.
So I studied everything I could get my hands on. I mean the one of the earliest books I remember pretending to read was William James's Varieties of Religious Experience.
Of course, of course. I mean, everybody pretends to read that, it's
Right,
right, when
exactly.
they're a little
If
kid, of
I
course.
oh, totally. I probably pretend to read it today too.
Right.
Um, so I was really, I studied everything I could, like,
Yeah.
and what that ended up being was a lot of the world's, religions and spirituality, and along with that, kind of inadvertently, healing traditions,
Mhm.
and I was doing spells in the backyard during my, Wiccan phase, and I did a school report on a, um, acupuncturist and, traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, and, um, I just was bound and determined to sort of figure this out for myself.
Yeah,
And I didn't stop. I basically haven't stopped studying that. I mean, it's taken its turns, but
right.
long story short, that built up quite a quite an encyclopedic variety of knowledge
Mhm,
about these sort of related topics of health and spirituality and
mhm.
nature. Um
And even when you were in the fashion in this fashion world, were you still studying?
I
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
yeah. So when I was in fashion, I was still practicing these things at home on my own. I would,
Yeah.
for a long period of time there, I was raw vegan and sober, and like on my vacation days, I would go on retreats. So like I went to Peru for ayahuasca in San Pedro. This was like, I don't know, 13 years ago or something
Mhm.
like that, like a long time before it was trendy like now. And going on like solo retreats to Honduras. It was like an Ashtanga and raw
Yeah.
retreat. So and then I would come home at night, and I had a little apothecary that I put in my apartment, and I would make medicine and do spells and like do rituals and um, light things on fire and drink things and like concoct
You're
and brew.
you're an interesting neighbor, weren't you?
And colleague, people were like,
Yeah.
"What are you drinking?"
What is that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is that, when the wellness industry really began to, like, gain its momentum, New York being a place of early adopters and,
Mhm,
sort of
mhm.
petri dish of all of these new ideas and things, there were a lot of people in the fashion industry who were some of the first to move into wellness.
Yeah,
And at that point, people started to recognize the context for what I was doing, what I was eating, drinking, my vacations, my weekend, like,
sure, sure.
explorations. And they stopped looking at me quite so strangely. They were like, "Oh, now we understand what you're
Mhm,
doing," and long story short, I decided that I had achieved my dream of working in fashion, and I realized that was not going to be my whole life.
mhm,
And the world sort of opened up to me, and it was like, well, I could see the industry beginning to be born really, or reborn.
mhm.
And it was what I was doing, off the clock. It was who I was really. And so I started my own company at that point. I
Mm.
started writing about what I knew. I didn't feel like I was in a place to teach, but I felt like I was in a place to share the things that I was
Oh, that's an
exploring.
interesting sort of separating those 2 a little bit.
Yeah.
I never think about it like that. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a theme that recurs for me in interesting ways in life. At that point, it was like, again, I just felt like I could share what I knew and what I was learning. And when I took my first client, and I write about this in Naturally as well, when I took my first client, I thought, well, I don't know that I'm qualified to, coach someone on their health,
Sure.
but at the same time, I knew so much more than she did about all the things that she was struggling with. I was like,
Mhm.
well, if I look at it from that perspective, I am qualified to help her because I do know more than her, so I can at least give her what I know.
Right.
Um,
There was
but
that really magical moment in, that movie Patch Adams. I don't remember that movie with Robin Williams way back.
I can't. I
He was
don't
a
know if
he
I could.
played a doctor, and I think it was based on a true story.
Yeah.
But, the doctor was going through medical school, but he also opened a clinic at the same time. And they try to they actually took him to court because he was administering medicine without a license, because at that point he wasn't a doctor. But he made this point that, is applying a wet, cold cloth to someone's head when they're
Mhm.
having a fever, is that, you know, do you need a medical degree for that? Or is, giving somebody an aspirin or things like that. And it's like the way that he explained it and the way that movie, like, talked about, like, you don't have to be a doctor in order to, care for others and help
Yeah.
others when they're in need.
Yeah.
I really, it always stood out to me, and like, yes, of course, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. It's a beautiful idea that we used to have a lot more of.
I think so.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was herbalism, and still is obviously for a great part of the
Well, I
world.
do think that people are getting more and more nervous, though. I think that,
Yes.
I think that the lights are shining down on herbalists a little bit more now, and or
Mhm.
as far as maybe the scrutiny,
Mhm.
is there, and it's like you have to be careful. I know in our world, we have to be really, really careful in what we talk about, how we, the way that we talk about the products that we sell and things like that. It's a constant for us to make
Totally.
sure that we're not crossing a line, and I see the good and I see the bad in that,
Yep.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's true. It's totally true. I mean, one of the first things I did when I started my private practice was get insurance, you know, get
Yep.
insurance
Yeah,
and I went back and I studied more. I was like, if I'm going to take on the responsibility of clients or eventually consulting companies on formulation or all these
sure.
different things, it was like I need to be in a place where I feel because I think as a practitioner, there are different legalities than as a company in the
Yeah,
space,
right.
but I did what I could to make sure that I was as well equipped as possible to serve the people that I eventually came to serve
Right,
and sell
right.
to and all the things. So,
'Cause I imagine you gotta protect yourself, but more importantly, you have to protect the client.
oh yeah, totally both. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I want to make sure that I feel, as fully informed as possible to serve them slash protect them um yeah, also protect myself. So, Um, yeah, so that was the beginning of the herbalism journey kind of officially for me, but obviously it began when I was a kid. So
Well, yeah, it sounds like the plants took a hold of you pretty early on.
for sure.
Also, the science took a hold of you pretty early
Mm.
on too,
Yes,
right?
true.
Which
Yeah.
I love, by the way. I truly love, and it's one of my favorite topics on this podcast is talking to those that mix that
Mm.
science and herbalism together and try to really, um, this amalgamation of, like, what both can bring
Yes.
and make sure that in this healing process. I think that's so, so important.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I think the science has always been very important to me, and there's
Mhm.
a lot of it in naturally. And I didn't want to bog the reader down with reading a bunch of science. It's in there, but I tried to make it so that any claim that I was making about the way that these herbs work, there are references for that.
Yeah.
I find that can be a pain point or an opportunity maybe in a lot of other publications in the space. And I find the science to be, look, for me, it was one of the main ways that I learned about the mechanisms of actions and the relationship between the plant and our bodies was by just going into the weeds of the science. And I also find it to be really compelling for people who are skeptical of the efficacy of herbalism. They tend to love to have some studies to, to verify what thousands of years of traditional use are
And
telling.
that's important, right? I mean, I
What's
think
that?
that we d well, as a skeptic
Mhm. Yeah,
myself, I see it as, I don't like to take things on face value. Like, I
yeah,
do want to have a better understanding of what is happening,
totally.
um, I don't I I tend to lean away from that whole, like, "Well, it's just magic," right? Because
Yeah.
that doesn't make sense to me. Like,
I
there has to be more to it than it's
Yeah,
just magic. But
yeah,
what I love, and especially in herbalism, is that, and I think in any science, right? But the more that you learn, the more that you really start to go into the details and try to figure out what is happening, it all starts to make more and more sense,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
And it's like, of course that plant is doing this because it contains, like
Yeah,
it's genetics, it's molecular genetic or whatever it is. Add science here. I'm not
yep.
can't really do that very well. But yeah, like
Yeah.
that it works because there is something there.
Yes. And that brings up the point that I think we're also circling, and that's so important to me, which is, well, it's important to all herbalists, I think, and maybe functional health broadly, the why,
Yes.
right? Why?
Yes.
Why is it
Mhm.
working?
Why?
And also
Why?
why do I have this symptom? Not just, medicating the symptom when we get to that cause point, but yeah, yeah. So love the science, have always worked with it and yeah, really made a point of putting a lot of it in the book. So,
So the book sounds like it was maybe there wasn't even a decision to write the book, right? I'm assuming maybe it just was always there. It was always something that you just knew
mm,
was going to happen.
yeah, that's a good question. Well, so the part of me that is even longer term, I would say, than the work well, or maybe the same sort of duration in my life, but I've been writing since as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
When I was a little kid, my first, journal, my first diary, I keep it up here. I've been a writer, and it's the thing that feels the most right for me to do. It's just my
Hmm.
thing. It's how I think, it's how I breathe, it's how I, live. And it was, as I sort of mentioned in the fashion thing, I wanted to move to New York to work in fashion, but I wanted to write, and when I
Hmm.
came here, I had a little body of work that I was trying to sell. And as anybody who's alive knows, writers don't tend to make a lot of money. So moving to New
Yeah.
York and trying to be a
Yeah.
writer
Unfortunately. Right.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So it's on the one hand, this book is a dream come true because it's a book I've written and I've published it. I have a fantastic publisher. Like, that blew my
Hmm.
mind. The Penguin wanted to publish this book.
Yeah.
And
That's
then
huge, by the way.
oh, amazing. Like, what a
Jesus.
gift to herbalism as well.
Right.
I was astounded that
Yeah.
they
I mean,
and they're
you knocked it out of the park at your first at bat.
it was amazing.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to them. And there were other really, really excellent publishers who also wanted this book. And that also blew my mind. I
Hmm.
did not expect that to happen as a first time author, as an herbalist writing a book about herbalism, but it was, here we are. So, and then in terms of this book, it's my sort of capstone project in terms of it contains as much as I could put in it, of what I know, what I've learned, what I've taught, what I've seen. It's all in there.
Hmm.
So this is my this is my herbalism, like, body here
Sure.
behind me.
Yeah.
Um and so what did it all, was it always going to be written? I don't know. I'd been approached to write books at different points in my herbalism career, then and it's crazy how long the process is. There was a point in, I think it was 2022, or maybe even the end of 2021, something like that, where I was like, okay, I want to write a book. I
Mm.
want to do this. How do I go about doing this?
Yeah.
It's like, well, you get an agent, and then you put a proposal together. You get an agent. You redo the proposal. Takes a year. Then
Mm.
you pitch it to publishers, and then the whole process from signing the contract with Penguin to this thing being published was 2 years, which is the typical
Wow.
timeline, which was fast. I wrote it in
Huh.
8
Yeah.
months, 9 months.
Right.
Um, so, but I wasn't sure, that was going to be how I was going to sort of, I don't want to say end, but evolve this chapter in my life where I've been an herbalist and put it in a book. I didn't know it ended in a book, but I could not be happier that it did. It was a perfect turning of the page, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I just think that I don't know, but what little I've talked to you so far, it just feels like that it was something that was it was kind of bubbling up, right? And then
Yeah.
eventually it was just going to spill over, and it had to be put out, and it had to be like I often talk about this that there's this with artists especially and people that are creative that you don't have a choice. Just
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, it just
yeah.
comes out. It doesn't matter. Like you wanna have a choice. You wanna, like, maybe not have to do but you don't. You
Yeah.
don't,
You're
right.
fighting some, like you're
It's a
fighting some life force.
yeah, yeah, and it's a fight you can't win.
Yeah,
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 you can't. I mean,
yeah,
it doesn't work. Like, you
no,
have to so it sounds like that's kind of the same. I mean and
yeah.
also just imagine, like, I could if I was going to write, like, basically a story of an herbalist, it would be, like, your childhood and your, like, the way that it all, like, came together. It just be like, "Oh, well, only thing we need to do is sprinkle Rosemary Gladstar into your, like, childhood somehow, and then it would be perfect." It would be like that perfect
Yeah, I had aunties and,
yeah,
figures that came in and out, yeah. I mean, look, I'll be honest though, I didn't think I was going to get, quote unquote, the opportunity or um, make it so that I would be a writer in
yeah,
this life. I really didn't. I thought I sort of missed that boat. I mean, I've been writing, I write obviously in my businesses and all these sorts of things. I've been writing the whole time, But in terms of actually writing books,
Yeah.
writing essays, pieces, whatever it is, I just thought maybe I won't get to do that in this life. Like I needed to establish like financial security. I had to do a
Mhm.
lot of things to like
Mhm.
build the life that I felt comfortable with. And I
Yes.
thought I might have to sacrifice this thing. So the fact that my life is now kind of, or not kind of, very much aimed at a future of writing books, um,
Right.
makes me, so happy I could cry. It's incredible. I'm so grateful, and excited because now it feels like, well, now it's, clear that's going to be something I get to do. So,
Did you have a period of, sort of, where you kinda crashed down a bit after it was all done?
well, it hasn't been out long, so that period
Uh,
might still be coming.
yeah.
It's been out for what, like a month and a half now,
Mhm.
and I'll say there are all these strange pauses in the process. So, like, I turned the manuscript in, and then I think I waited 3 months to get edits back or something like that. It was a long time.
Okay.
Um, but I was in Costa Rica, so, like, I would definitely was not going to crash.
Okay, alright, yeah,
Um,
no, right,
yeah.
right, I forgot about that part of yeah,
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 that's a nice balance,
yeah,
but there have been many strange sort of like the book came out and on publication day, it's like, well, what happens now? Like, it was this
sure,
big, just kind of unknowable future. I didn't know
sure,
what to do that day. I was like, I should probably just have some friends over because, like, nothing actually happens this day. It just, is published.
right,
Um, and then I will say there was a recent period where, the book was published and I had been podcasting and writing and doing all these things for
yeah,
months prior, preparing, for stuff to go out on launch. And then I had like 4 podcasts a day. I was teaching, I
mm,
was recording the audiobook for like 7 hours a day. It was nonstop for 4 or 5, maybe a 6 week stretch. And I crawled out of that
yeah,
at the
yeah,
end, but that wasn't like postpartum anything. It was
yeah,
just straight up exhaustion,
yeah,
and understandably so. So I took off to Brazil for 3 weeks and healed myself. But no, I think here's something I realized last night. I've known that over the course of my career, I love to build things and move on.
sure,
I built 3 businesses. I had a cafe, I had a product line, I had another product line, all these different things. I love to build them. And then when that challenge is over, I like to move on.
yeah,
That's a little problematic if you're like an entrepreneur because
yeah, yeah, no,
after you
exactly,
build these things, like it's very rare that you just get to exit and move on to the next thing.
right,
However, it's the perfect sort of mindset or need set, if you will, for writing books.
hmm,
Built it, onto the
yeah,
next, built it, onto the next. So I realized
yeah.
this last night. I was like, this is great. This is perfect for me because I'm
Oh, that
already in
is
the next
that's
one,
yeah,
know?
of course, because you're already writing the next one,
Yeah,
you've already moved on.
totally.
Ha!
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
figured it out.
That was a good one. Yeah. Finally. Figured something out finally. Yeah.
So
So
let's
that
talk
feels
about the
good.
book itself.
Yeah, yeah.
So the listeners can get a better understanding of what they're gonna get when they buy
Mm,
this book.
yeah, totally. So, naturally, the herbalist guide to health and transformation. This book, it starts out with an introduction to herbalism, and something that has been really nice to hear from people who've read it already is that even if they know their way around teas and tinctures and
Sure.
powders and herbalism generally, like they're still really enjoying the beginning 2-3 chapters of this book. They're learning things, they're finding it very helpful for kind of understanding what herbalism is, how it relates to modern life, what it
Mhm.
is like to have the herbalist perspective when you live
Yeah.
the lifestyle of an herbalist. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the setup, and groundwork there. And
I
then
think that's great. I had a professor once, say to me that the most important thing in life is to be able to
Mm,
define what it is that you are doing or what it is that you are researching or that's doing or
mm,
defining something is the most important thing that you can do.
yeah.
Wisdom, right? Because there are gonna be so many people who, may not even have a real understanding of what herbalism is.
Totally. Totally. And a lot of people who have heard the word and have a preconception about what it is,
Right.
you know.
Right.
So yeah, a bit of setup there in the beginning, and then thereafter, each chapter is dedicated to a category of herbs and the corresponding body system. So, for
Mhm.
example, that first chapter is nervines and the nervous system.
Yeah.
And in each of those chapters, you get a case study where I take you through in great detail, what I did with a client who had a specific need related to, that category of herbs or that body system. I give a lot of sort of more holistic, lifestyle advice. Here's nutrition, movement, perspective, just other things to accompany the herbs. I go through, of course, specific herbs, some of the most accessible, sort of effective, well-known herbs. They're all their benefits, how they work, the science, the history, those sorts of things. And then you also learn about that body system,
Mm.
So let me talk about the nervous system and its role in our life. And I also get a little philosophical in each chapter because I can't help myself. And talk about, things like the role of listening in health, and sort of
Mm.
relate the role of the nervous system to a system that is listening, and how do we listen to our bodies, and how do we
Mhm.
listen to the world, and what do we hear when we do that, and those sorts of
Mhm.
things. Um, so each chapter is structured a bit like that.
Yeah.
A chapter on adaptogens and stress, bitters and gut health, hepatics and retreating, aphrodisiacs and sort of state changers, and pleasure. There's a chapter on pain, sleep,
Mhm.
and transformation. I
Yeah.
talk about entheogens, psychedelics in that chapter.
Mhm.
I'm probably missing, energy and brain health. Yeah. So, and then in the back, there are additional resources. So, obviously, all the references. I have some recipes back there. I have an herb use table, which I have not seen in the industry, and I was so determined to create one. So, it's a kind of quick reference guide where you're
Mm.
like, I want to take ashwagandha.
Yeah.
What dose? What format? Any
Mhm.
contraindications? Does it
Mhm.
pair well with anything? And there's this big herb use table that includes every herb that I talk about in the book and more. So you
Sure.
can quickly just like reference that. Um, I should print that out and make a really cool like poster or something for
There you
people.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's an idea.
That's a
That's another thing to do. No, it's a good idea though. I'll
No,
write
it
that down
absolutely is.
later.
Right.
So that's naturally in a nutshell. You see,
I can imagine that as an app just for people, right?
yes, yes, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Just to be able
Um,
to go through, and I
totally.
don't know if that exists. I don't.
It's funny. I feel like I was exploring something like that many years ago. I don't think it exists. I think Full Script is building or has built something sort of similar, but
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so and something that some feedback that really means a lot to me as well, in terms of naturally is like I was really determined to make the book a pleasure to read. And
Mm.
you can understand now, given my background and my relationship with writing, I wanted to write this book so, so, so well. I wanted it to be beautiful, entertaining, wanted it
Mhm.
to flow. I wanted
Mhm.
people to have a good time, like all while they're learning about herbalism. I wanted them to feel the excitement and the magic and the
Yeah.
transformation, all these incredible things that
Yeah.
happen when you work with plants. I didn't want it to be a textbook. So it's definitely not that.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, and I say good. Not that there's
You
anything
see
wrong with
those too.
textbooks,
Got a lot
but
back here, you can't see them, but
I do understand that in that, you want people textbooks are not necessarily the most entertaining,
sure, certainly. Yeah.
right? They're just
Edifying,
not.
but
I
yeah.
mean, they can be entertaining in the sense that you're learning, and that's very important, and you can be excited about that learning process.
Yeah,
But if you're just, trying to just, I don't know, sit down on a Sunday afternoon,
exactly.
most people don't reach for a textbook.
Right.
Most people reach for something that's a little bit more, again, entertaining, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's really a good approach to the book.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I don't see a lot of that in the in our space. So I
There's not a
Mhm.
lot. It's, I think that, it's well, that's the challenge, right? I think how are you entertaining and, educational at the same time? And there are teachers out there that can do that for sure. Uh,
Mhm.
I think of, um, well, my I think of, like, Howie Brownstein is one of my
Mm.
favorites,
Mhm.
and he's out here in Eugene, and I love Howie. He and Steven Yeager, who, is a colleague of mine, they are so entertaining.
Yeah,
They're Muppets, right? I always think of them as like these Muppet characters, but at the same time, you're almost tricked into learning
yeah,
when you're around them because
yeah,
you're being so entertained, but you're also like, there's all this information that's coming at you from them,
yeah.
and you're like, wow, like they figured that out, and
Yeah,
that's so hard to do,
yeah,
so hard to do.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, understand. I mean, it was a challenge, but it was
Yeah, how did you do it? How did you? So did you have an approach to that? I imagine like an 80-20. You're like, all right, it's gonna be 80-20, or like a 60-40. All right, it's gonna be 60% information and 40% sort of entertainment or that.
Yeah, what was my approach? I mean, first of all, I'd never written a book before, so I didn't have an approach to the thing in general. It's like I signed the contract and just started writing the very next day and was like, I don't know how this is going to happen, but I'm going to do it. So, and each chapter unfolded differently, some kind of unspooled from the client case study,
Yeah.
others, in different ways, maybe about the topic of the chapter energy or whatever it is. Um, but there were a lot of conversations with my editor who wanted to include a lot of like bullet points and tables and these sort of visual aids to simplify the information and allow people to kind of keep moving through the book, because you don't want people to put it down, right? You want to carry them along. And I was like, I asked her on multiple occasions and bless Penguin for working with me on this. I said, I really want to try to write this in such a way that it's so compelling that people don't need bullet points to
Yeah.
keep
Yeah.
to keep going. I really
Right.
don't want to interrupt the flow with a table.
Mhm.
Like, let me try. And so I just worked and worked until it was, and there were so many different ways that might happen. It might be injecting a bit of humor or an anecdote from a client or
Mm.
poetry or, whatever it was. So I don't know that I had a specific approach, and there definitely wasn't any sort of ratio. But I was just really cognizant the whole time that I was writing, is this getting too dry? It's
Yeah.
all very dense, but it's dense in a way um, that I hope is really like gratifying for people. I write densely in general. I like every word matters to me, every comma
Sure, sure,
matters. So,
sure.
um, yeah, I just tried to like
You spend like
surprise and delight.
30 minutes on a sentence.
What's that?
You spend like 30 minutes on each sentence, and it's like,
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah, I'll spend an hour on a word.
yeah, no, exactly. My
The
my my
insanity of this
my
process.
wife, is a scientist, and she writes a lot of papers, and, I've just I've witnessed her writing, and
Yeah,
I'm like, "My god, you literally just spent an hour on one sentence," and she's like, "Yeah, it's that important."
it's
You know?
that important.
Like,
Yeah,
"Oh my god, okay."
yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
feel that. I feel that. This is a permanent object.
Oh, right, there's no editing once it's out, right? I mean, it's just kind of
Yeah.
it's there, you can't
Yeah, you
yeah.
can fix, like, a typo or something in a reprint, but I
Mhm.
was aware of that too. It's like, yeah, maybe I do spend an hour on a word, but then this word is forever. So
Well, that's a powerful word, right? That is one
it's,
powerful word. Were you referencing any other writers? Were you, like, thinking about any other writers and their styles when you were writing?
hmm. I don't tend to read a lot when I'm writing as heavily as I was, just because I sort of write until my brain stops working, and then
Mhm.
more words is, like, not healthy.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, I have favorite writers. They don't tend to write in this genre.
Sure.
So I'm not sure. I can't reference myself referencing other writers
Right.
while writing this book. I am referencing other writers as I work on the next book for sure.
Huh.
But I think, I've been writing so long
Mhm.
and consistently that I have a pretty I have a very like established style and voice already.
Mhm.
So I don't struggle to sort of locate that. I
Well, that's
think I
cool.
just I'm grateful for that. Like the writing muscles are very well trained
Yeah.
at this point. But I think I have a personal sort of there's a challenge for me to get something to a place where I know it's as well written as I can make it. It's sort of more of an internal, like, reference, if you will,
Mhm.
than an external reference. So yeah, I guess I didn't really reference other writers,
Mhm.
in writing naturally, but in general, I read and take in literature
Sure. Of
quite
course.
regularly. So
Right.
yeah, good question. Interesting. These are questions people have not asked me about the book or my process, so it's very fun. Thank you.
Good. Good. I'm glad. I'm glad. Well, I'm excited. I mean, it's anytime I get to talk to someone who's well, and I get to once a week on this podcast, which is so amazing.
Yeah,
People that are passionate, but people that are creative, and I really try to talk about their creative process because I'm
yeah,
so interested in others' creative process and the way that they're able to, you
yeah.
know. But it sounds like you found your voice pretty early on, which is impressive.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I believe it's just the, 10,000 hours or whatever. Like literally been writing since
Well,
I
yeah,
was
right, right, right. Maybe you're
like
right. When
I
you started.
journal every day. I've been writing. I was working as a journalist in college. I've never stopped writing. I've done journalism, copy, marketing. Like, I wrote a ton for my businesses over the years. It's been it's been constant.
Mhm.
Um, and I've done a couple like self-published projects and stuff like that. So, but I think, that said, like any artist's style tends to evolve as well, right?
Of
So
course,
I'm
of
really
course.
trying to push myself into some new territory with the next book. And it will challenge me to write maybe not differently, but even more openly. So here's something that we touched on earlier that's very interesting to me is you know naturally, and my role in the world for the last decade plus has been that of a teacher.
Yeah.
This is prescriptive nonfiction. Like I am teaching you the entire time. I'm with you, I'm learning with you, but I'm an expert in that sense, right? And I that has been a gratifying role, but at heart I'm an inquirer. I'm a
Mm.
philosopher. I don't have all the answers. I want to ask questions that we don't know the answers to yet, right? I've
Yeah.
been doing that since I was a kid.
Yeah.
So stepping out of that role,
Yeah.
and moving into the role that I do truly inhabit as well, of one who doesn't have it all figured out, is where I'll be writing from more so in the next book. And I write that way in my personal writings, but publicly, I haven't written that way maybe ever.
Oh,
I'm
sure.
always writing from a place of this is what I know, this is what I can teach, this is what I recommend, that sort of thing. So that'll be a shift.
Well, when you write that book, is it gonna be called Ness? Is that the title of it?
Oh, I would love that. That's funny. I was
Right?
working on working titles yesterday.
Yeah.
I
Just
would love that. I
yeah.
mean, let's make it so.
Right, where you're just to kind of yeah, this is the book. This is the book that explains it all, everyone. Like, that's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
did you learn anything new while you were writing? Were you able to, like you said you were kind of asking these questions that maybe while you were writing, were you able to come to some conclusions that maybe you hadn't come to before?
Oh, sir. I mean, I learned so much more when I was writing naturally. Do you mean about like Ness
No,
specifically?
no, no, just about, like, the herbal world and that sort of thing, and that, like, as you were writing it, were
Mm,
you also learning and
yeah.
also coming to these new, set of ideas or conclusions or whatever you wanna call them?
I would say that I learned a lot of, um, in terms of what I learned about herbalism, I would say I learned more facts and more science and the things you learn when you're researching more
Mhm, mhm.
heavily, like as I was reading through endless, studies looking for the one that I was looking for. Of course, I would learn so much more about other things. Um, so in that sense, yes, I would say from a broader perspective, I'm not sure that anything about my relationship to like herbalism generally, the wellness space generally, natural health,
Mhm.
functional health. I don't know that any of that evolved um, drastically, not notably at least that I could recall now. I think there are some interesting shifts that are happening um, in the space now. And for me now, as I'm starting to reflect kind of back onto it as opposed to out from within it, I always try to look from the outside into it. But
Sure.
yeah, so I would say like broadly, no, not really. I think I learned some, cool new facts about plants. Or, I mean, there are always every day there are 10,000 cool new facts about plants.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Right.
Um, and of course, I learned more about my process as in writing a book.
Mhm.
But yeah, I would say that nothing else sort of drastically changed. And that role kind of shift that I mentioned earlier, I was aware of that quite a while ago. So
Yeah.
I knew that maybe before I was writing this book. Yeah.
Right, right. So, do we get to get a little insight to your next book? Are we gonna be able to?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can talk about it a little bit. Here's the truth. At this stage, it's subject to change. And that's the other interesting part of
Life is subject to change.
true. Yeah. I mean, it's like you go into that process of
Another working title, by the way.
life is subject to change. That would be appropriate, really. Um, well, the agent has a perspective, the publisher has a perspective, the editor has a perspective, and of course, as the artist or the writer, like you may want to do exactly what you want to do, but these people have really valuable insights into what the market is
Yeah,
interested in. So
yeah.
their
Were
compromises.
you able to let go? Sorry, I'm interrupting you only
That's
because
fine.
in that process, were you able to let go of some of that, that autonomy? I mean, I don't or that, like, I imagine if I created something like that, that I would have a hard time maybe with the editing process because I'd be like, "Oh, that's near and dear to me, and I
Yeah.
wanna," like, was that a hard thing for you?
Yeah, it wasn't easy, but it was also a conversation.
Sure.
And, and a give and take. I mean, for example, this is my title, and
Mhm.
Penguin didn't want that title. And we had a lot of conversations about what the title was going to be
Really? Okay.
and what the cover was going to look like and all
Yeah.
these things. And
I
it
love
was
it, by the way.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
I love it too.
Yeah, it's beautiful. The
um
cover is beautiful. I love the whole, like, the look of the book is just gorgeous, so
Thank you. And that goes into the whole thing, from the very beginning, I've been trying to make herbalism um appealing to as many people as possible, make it beautiful, make it, all the things. So anyway, from the title and the cover to a word to a paragraph to a chapter to whatever, it was always a conversation. And if I and it's, and I also have to ask myself, if I am holding on to something that is near and dear to me, but my editor is saying, well, this is not going to land with the, intended reader in the way that we think, or it's not going to land with them at all. Like, well, then do I want to hold on to that? And
yeah,
why?
right.
Like what's my objective here as well? So there were lots of give and take, and or there was a lot of give and take. And we met each other at a really agreeable place in all cases.
Nice.
I had a
Nice.
very heavy-handed editor as well, and I chose to work with her because she has a reputation for being heavy-handed, and it was my first book, and I wanted somebody who was
Oh,
going to
right.
be in the weeds with me.
Yeah,
So there
right.
was I think on one draft, if I recall, it was like 7 or 10,000 edits. You go by one by one. So
Wow.
every one of those you have to say, is this near and dear to me or am I going to let it go?
Oh,
It's just
man.
like unreal. So yeah, so it's a compromise. And, again, I think the vision is a shared vision.
Sure,
So
sure.
yeah. And in terms of the next book, so all that, yeah, and so subject to change, I'm working on the proposal for the next book, which I'm meeting with my agent next week, and then she'll have opinions or maybe not, and then the whole thing could transform a bit before it's out in the world. But so I think that I've been living I've been living a pretty incredible parallel life while naturally was being produced and born. My life has included um, moving essentially to Costa Rica, leaving a 10-year relationship, um, becoming a becoming a writer, discovering a lot of things about myself, personally, professionally, sort of exiting the matrix of convention, and New York City, reevaluating what it means to live my life, what it means for us
Mm,
to really find our
mhm,
place and our path
mhm.
outside of the system that
Yeah.
is always elbowing us into a certain way. So I want to explore that. It's a lot of topics that are very near and dear to me. Sorry for the New York ambiance. It wanted to be
Oh,
included.
no, no, I encourage it. Great. All
Um,
very authentic.
yeah. So, much more memoir,
Yeah,
much more raw and vulnerable, much
nice.
more philosophical, and just kind of asking these questions about, what it means to be a woman of a
Mhm.
certain age in a certain place, living a certain way,
Yeah.
and finding, another way to do that. Those are the highlights.
Wow.
I'm still working on the
No, I
one-liner.
love it. I love it because I think that it's, to go from what you to your first book to that, I mean, it's really, so you get the wisdom in the first book, and then you kinda get more of the inside or the
Yeah,
insight, to who you are in the second book, and that's like I think that's a
yeah,
wonderful transition. I think that's
yeah.
fantastic.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I hope so, and, I think there will be lots of nature and naturalism in the second book as well, because I fell in love with Costa Rica. I fell in love with the land and the place and the
Mhm.
the dirt and the plants, and like as if it was a person. I was
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
I was in, it was a person to me, or
Right.
whatever. It doesn't matter if it's a person, but it was that kind of love.
Right.
So there's a lot of exploration of place and environment and all of that in kind of, you know, I don't know, waking up or whatever. And then I think I've realized that there's also something to be said about the wellness industry, and also, the persona or the role, if you will, that I have been inhabiting, that represents what so many people have been inhabiting, which is like this fully optimized life. We've got our morning routine, we've
Mhm.
got our midday routine, we go on and on and on and on,
Mhm.
dialed. And I've had it dialed for a long time, right? And that's a sort of a objective, but a questionable one,
Mhm.
arguably, maybe, for a lot of people who are really, excited about wellness or in wellness, or, deep down that path.
Yeah.
Um, and, I was really inspired by this conversation. I overheard at one point where a couple people were talking about how, even there are a lot of pieces about this out now. You see the younger and younger generations, um, so eager for that optimization,
Mhm.
and that healthfulness, that they are, not having any fun.
Yeah.
They're not going out. They're not
Yeah.
having sex. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
not drinking alcohol. That's a great thing,
That's a
but
good
they're
thing.
not
Yeah.
socializing. So it's
Right.
like,
Right.
interesting,
Yeah.
interesting,
Yeah.
and that's, that's major. And here I am, kind of having exited, even if temporarily or, occasionally, the matrix of wellness, and I'm living in a blue zone where everybody lives, longer than anybody else on the planet.
Yeah.
If none of the hacks and gadgets and routines that you see in modern Western wellness,
Sure. Right.
they have happiness. They have this relationship with the natural world and the environment.
Right.
They're healthier than us by a long shot.
Yeah. Yeah. I have my wife has a colleague that studies, indigenous tribes in, I think actually maybe in Costa Rica. I have to ask her, but also in Africa as well. And he goes in and he just looks at their happiness. Basically, he's
Yeah.
taking, like, he's using markers within science to kind of like judge this or whatever. But he's showing that the happiest people on the planet are these people that live the simplest lives.
So simple. So simple.
They have, yeah. And the more complex we make our life, the more like gadgets that we have, the more things around us to make our life easier, whatever that means, the less happy we are, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
and I thought you said something earlier when you were talking about like these generation. I was watching something recently and they were talking about us being in a collective depression.
Mm. Mhm.
Like everybody seems to be collectively depressed right now with
Yeah.
the world and with what's happening and that sort of thing. And how do we come out the other side of that? And what's that
Yeah.
even going to look like? Right.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting to me that
Yeah.
you're wanting to write about that a little bit and talk about like, that
Yeah.
sort of, what is happening and also like what you're seeing as possible. And I don't know if you would want to call it a solution, but at least, a step in the right direction, right?
Yeah. I think I want to share, my experience with it
Mhm.
and let people do with that what they will,
Right.
Obviously moving to Costa Rica or moving to the hills or wherever, anybody might dream of moving is not accessible to
Yeah.
everyone. I don't suggest
Right.
that we all need to head for the hills, but
The hills are beautiful though.
yeah.
They're just
Um,
beautiful. So,
but it completely changed my life
yeah.
really quickly and really radically,
Yeah.
and I think I have to tell that story, and I think it's also a moment in time where, we see this optimization, for longevity, if you will, at the cost of, or it's like a sort of optimizing for longevity, and then, but we're minimizing life.
Yeah.
We're minimizing pleasure and joy and vitality and happiness
Right.
on a daily basis so that we
Yeah.
can like not get wrinkles,
Uh-huh.
or live longer. And look, I'd love to live a long, healthy life. It's been my business for, for forever, but
Right.
it's a really, I think that this to me is the most interesting topic, on a macro scale as relates to, well, no, I shouldn't say the most, but it's very interesting to me. I think there are political and other points that are really,
Sure. Sure.
really, important right now. But I find this very fascinating in terms of sort of a zeitgeist to come.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Looking so forward to it.
Thanks. So am I. It's so fun to write. It's really energizing. This material and these experiences have been, yeah, it's been quite the ride.
Well, we love you.
I love you too.
Yeah,
I'm such
so
a
we are
fan.
so excited. Again, having you on was just incredible. So, and this was,
Thank you.
I love this talk. This was so much fun. So, thank you so much for being on. And yeah, I hope we get to do it again. Maybe after your second book is out.
Definitely. Let's do it anytime.
Okay,
Thank you
perfect.
for having me.
Thank you. You have a wonderful day.
You too.
Okay, bye.